Bible in a year, making it easier to understand.
And that is why, if you were an ancient Israelite, you didn't just have a calendar. You had a weapon against burnout. Seriously, imagine you're at your job, the one that's been grinding you down for years. You're exhausted, you're in debt, and it feels like the walls are closing in. But then, you look at the countdown clock on your wall. It's not counting down to a weekend or a measly 2-week vacation. It's counting down to the year your mortgage is literally deleted. Not forgiven by a bank, just gone. And your family's land? The farm your grandfather lost? It's coming back to you. For free.
Okay, wait. John, you can't just start with mortgage deletion. You're going to get everyone's hopes up. Are we talking about the Bible or a late-night infomercial?
It sounds like a scam, right? One weird trick to get your land back. But this is actually the heart of what we're reading today in Leviticus. We're talking about the year of Jubilee. It's the ultimate universal reset. But before we get to the free land part, we have to look at how God actually trains these people to handle that kind of radical freedom.
Welcome back to the Deeper Dive community. I'm Stephanie, the one usually buried in historical footnotes, and trying to figure out how these ancient rules actually feel in real life.
And I'm John. I'm the guy who looks at these ESV chapters and tries to find the modern mirror. Basically, how does this 3,000-year-old text reflect the crazy world we're living in right now?
And today is a big one. We're covering Leviticus 23 through the start of chapter 25. It's basically God's master schedule. And I have to be honest, John, when I first started reading chapter 23, it felt a lot like looking at a syllabus for a class I didn't sign up for. It's just list after list of festivals. Passover, first fruits, trumpets. I found myself thinking, does God just really like parties?
I mean, technically, yes. But these aren't just parties. Think of them as calendar invites from the creator of the universe. The Hebrew word here is moadim. It means fixed times or appointed meetings. It's like God saying, hey, I blocked out this time in my schedule, and I'm inviting the whole nation to show up.
That's a much better way to look at it. Because when you read about the Sabbath, which is the very first thing listed, it's easy to see it as a don't do this, don't do that rule. But you call it the foundation of the whole system.
Exactly. The text calls it Shabbat Shabbaton. Scholars say that translates to an absolute Sabbath or a Sabbath of complete rest. And here's the kicker. It's the only weekly ritual that defines Israel's holiness. God tells them they have to cease all malacha.
Okay, no jargon zone alert. What is melaka?
Great catch. In the plain English version, malacha refers to assigned tasks, the kind of work you do for a boss or an employer. It's the grind. It's the side hustle. It's the stuff we do because we're trying to prove our worth or pay the bills. God says, every 7 days, you stop the grind. You prove that your life isn't defined by your productivity.
That is so countercultural for us today. I mean, if I don't answer an email on a Saturday, I feel like the world is ending. But for them, Josephus, this ancient historian, actually wrote that this practice spread to almost every city because it was so distinct. It was like a badge of honor.
It's a right ordering of life. If you can't rest, you're not free. You're a slave to the system. And the Sabbath is just the weekly version. Chapter 23 then takes that same 7 pattern and explodes it across the whole year with these festivals.
Let's walk through the spring cluster first, because those are the ones that really tie into the story of Jesus, right?
100%. You've got Passover, unleavened bread, and first fruits. Passover is the universal reset of their debt of sin. It reminds them of the night they were rescued from Egypt. But then you have the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Stephanie, imagine God telling you to go through your kitchen and throw out every single piece of bread with yeast for a whole week.
I mean, as someone who loves sourdough, that sounds like a personal attack.
Right? But the modern mirror here is simple. Redemption is just the start. Cleaning out the old junk or the leaven in your life is the follow-through. It's like when you finally decide to delete that toxic app or stop hanging out with people who drag you down. You've been rescued. Now go clean the house.
And then there's the Feast of First Fruits. This one is beautiful. They had to take the very first sheaf of the barley harvest and wave it before God. They couldn't even eat the new grain until they did this.
It's the beta version of the harvest. It's like a sneak peek. You're acknowledging that God is the source of the whole thing before you even take a bite. It's the ultimate act of trust. And then 50 days later, you hit Pentecost. the Feast of Weeks.
which is where a group of former slaves officially becomes a community, or what the Bible calls a kingdom of priests. It's the anniversary of God giving them the law at Sinai.
It's God saying, I didn't just rescue you to leave you wandering. I rescued you to give you a purpose. But then we hit the fall cluster. And this is where the energy shifts. It gets intense.
Yeah, you have the Feast of Trumpets, Yom Teruah, and the text says they have to have loud blasts on the ram's horn. Why so much noise, John?
Think of it as the final alarm clock. It's a sensory wake-up call. We get so buried in our daily affairs, the physical things that Paul says in the New Testament are just temporary, that we forget what's actually eternal. The shofar blast is God saying, wake up, look at the big picture. Time is moving.
And then it leads directly into the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur. This is the most solemn day of the year, the fast.
It's the only day they're commanded to deny themselves. It's about the sanctuary being cleansed from all the gunk of the people's rebellion. Philo, another ancient writer, said that even people who didn't care about religion the rest of the year would show up for this. It's that heavy.
It's like that moment where you have to have a really hard, honest conversation with yourself in the mirror. No distractions, no food, just you and God.
Exactly. But then, and this is my favorite part, it ends with the Feast of Tabernacles. They have to build these temporary booths, or sukkot, and live in them for 7 days.
So God goes from a funeral-level, somber day in atonement to a week-long camping trip?
Literally. It's a massive community rejoice. They celebrate the grapes, the olives, the end of the work year. Living in the booths reminds them that this life is just a tent. We're just passing through on our way to the home God promised. It's the party to end all parties.
It's amazing to see how God fills time. It's not just a boring cycle. It's a story he's telling over and over. But we're just getting started. When we come back, we're going to step inside God's mobile headquarters, the tabernacle, and see why the light never goes out. And trust me, the eye for an eye law, it's not what you think.
Stay with us. We're going to take a quick break to stretch our legs, maybe blow a shofar if you've got one, and we'll be right back. And we are back, refreshed, refueled, and ready to step inside what we like to call God's mobile headquarters.
I still love that name for the tabernacle. It makes it sound so much more high-tech than just a tent in the desert. But John, we're looking at Leviticus 24 now, and it feels like a weird pivot. We just went through this massive, glorious calendar of festivals in chapter 23. Parties, trumpets, camping trips, and now we're suddenly talking about lamp maintenance and bread recipes? It feels like we went from a stadium concert to a janitor's closet.
I get it. It feels like a behind-the-scenes episode. But think about it this way. If chapter 23 is the public schedule, chapter 24 is the always-on power supply. It's the internal heartbeat that keeps the whole system running. We're looking at the menorah, the golden lampstand, and the bread of the presence. And Stephanie, the detail here is actually wild when you look at the modern mirror.
Okay, let's start with the lamp. The text says they need pure oil from beaten olives to keep the light burning regularly or continually. Why beaten olives? That sounds aggressive. Couldn't they just use regular olive oil?
It's actually a huge deal. To get the pure oil, the Zach oil, they couldn't just throw olives in a press. They had to handpick them and gently beat or crush them. This produced a specific kind of oil that burned bright and, most importantly, was smokeless. It didn't gunk up the sanctuary.
Wait, so the brightest, cleanest light comes from the fruit that was beaten the most?
Boom. You nailed the modern mirror right there. Think about the seasons in your life where you feel beaten, the trials, the stress, the crushing weight. We usually think those moments are extinguishing our light, but in God's economy, that beating is actually what produces the purest, brightest witness. It's like a high-end filter on a photo. It takes work to get that clarity. Aaron, the high priest, had to tend these lamps every single morning and evening. It was a perpetual statute.
So God is basically saying, I never sleep, so the light never goes out.
Exactly. It's a visible reminder that God is always aware of what's going on, even when we're asleep. He doesn't blip in and out of your life. He's the always-on connection. And the menorah itself, get this, was shaped like a stylized tree with almond blossoms.
A tree? Like The tree of life in Eden?
You're reading my mind. The tabernacle was designed to be a micro-Eden. Walking into the tent was like walking back into the garden where humanity originally walked with God. The light of the menorah was the only light in there. No windows, no skylights, just God's light.
That is so cool. But then, right opposite this beautiful, glowing golden tree, you have a table with 12 loaves of bread, the bread of the presence, or, if you want the literal Hebrew, bread of the face. John, is God hungry? Does he need a snack?
No! God's not ordering takeout. The 12 loaves represent the 12 tribes. It's like a reserved table at a restaurant that is always set for the whole family. The priest would replace the bread every single Sabbath.
And then they'd eat the old bread? That sounds like a lot of carbs for one priest.
It was table fellowship. In that culture, eating bread together was the ultimate mark of friendship. By replacing it every week, God was saying, I don't want a stale relationship with you. I want fresh fellowship. It's like that person in the group chat who is always checking in, making sure the connection is still live.
I love that. Fresh fellowship. It's not a one-time event, it's a weekly renewal. But John, we have to talk about the second half of chapter 24. It takes a very dark turn. There's a guy who gets into a fight and he blasphemes the name. And then we get that famous, or maybe infamous, law, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth.
The lex talionis. Most people think this is about revenge, like God is giving us permission to go full John Wick on anyone who wrongs us.
I mean, it sounds like that. If he breaks a bone, break his bone. It feels pretty harsh, John. How is that a modern mirror for a God of love?
Okay, here's the plain English reality check. In the ancient world, if you knocked out my tooth, my family might come and burn down your whole village. It was unlimited retaliation. 1 tooth for 10 lives. God steps in and says, no, stop. The punishment must fit the crime. This wasn't a command to take an eye. It was a limit on how much you could take.
So it's actually a fairness doctrine?
Exactly. It's the world's first anti-retaliation policy. It protected the poor from being overpunished by the powerful. It ensured that justice was blind and equal for everyone, the citizen and the foreigner alike. It's about the integrity of the name.
The name. Why way? The text says the man blasphemed the name.
It's about reputation. If God's people are out there having blood feuds and taking excessive revenge, it makes God look like just another petty, angry deity. Lex talionis was a revolutionary step toward mercy because it forced people to stop and ask, what is actually fair, rather than, how much can I hurt them?
That is a huge shift in perspective. It's about de-escalation. It's God putting a brake on our human anger.
But wait, it gets even crazier. Because if chapter 24 is about fairness and justice, chapter 25 is about radical reset in the economy. This is where we hit the year of Jubilee.
This is the part that sounds like a fantasy novel. Every 50 years, everything goes back to the way it was.
Every single thing. All debts deleted. All slaves freed. All land returned. It's the ultimate clean slate. But to understand how it works, we have to look at the math, which, don't worry, I've got my modern mirror calculator ready for.
I'm holding you to that, because land returning to its original owner sounds like a nightmare for real estate agents.
Oh, the urban real estate rules in walled cities are actually different, but we'll get into that right after the break.
We're going to take a quick breather. Go grab some fresh bread, maybe some sourdough since it's unleavened season, and we will be right back to talk about the mortgage burning party of the century.
Don't go anywhere. This is where the Bible gets really radical. And we are back, refreshed, refueled, and ready for what I think is the most mind-blowing economic policy ever written. Honestly, if you're a fan of clean slate stories or those videos where someone pays off a stranger's student loans, you are going to love Leviticus 25.
I've been waiting for this. You've been teasing mortgage deletion since the intro, John. But before we get to the big 5 to 0, we have to talk about the 7 rhythm hitting the dirt, the sabbatical year.
Yes, the Shemitah. Here's the deal. God tells the Israelites that for 6 years, they can farm, prune, and harvest. But in the 7th year, the land gets a Sabbath. No planting, no commercial harvesting. You basically just let the ground breathe.
Okay, wait. I'm a mom. I'm thinking about the pantry. If nobody is planting or harvesting for a whole year, what are we eating? Is this just a nationwide juice fast?
Not quite. It's actually a huge act of faith. God promises that the harvest in the 6th year will be so massive it'll cover them for 3 years. It's like a buy one, get two free deal from the Creator. The modern mirror here is simple. It's ecological composting for the soul. We think we have to keep squeezing every ounce of productivity out of our lives and our work to survive. But God says, resting actually restores the power to produce.
That's a big question right there. Do we actually trust God enough to stop? But then we take that 7-year cycle and we multiply it by 7. 7 times 7 is 49, and then we hit the big one, the year of Jubilee.
The Yuval. This is our hidden gem for the day. Let's do a quick word study because this is cool. The word Yuval, which we translate as Jubilee, literally means a ram or a ram's horn.
Wait, so the year of joy is just named after a sheep's horn?
Exactly, because the whole year is inaugurated by the blast of the shofar on the Day of Atonement. Imagine it, the most somber day of the year. Everyone is fasting, and suddenly, this goosebump-inducing sound echoes across the hills. It's the sound of the universal reset.
And the primary rule of the Jubilee is proclaim liberty throughout the land, which, by the way, is the verse inscribed on the Liberty Bell in Philly. But what does that liberty actually look like in the ESV text?
It's a two-pronged attack on poverty. First, the return of property. In Israel, land wasn't just real estate. It was an ancestral gift from God. But people fall on hard times, right? Maybe a bad crop, maybe a family tragedy. They end up selling their land to stay afloat.
Right. And in our world, once you sell your house, it's gone. You're a renter now. Your kids don't get that equity back.
But in the Jubilee, the lease expires. Here's the modern mirror math. Land in Israel could never be sold permanently. God says in verse 23, "The land is mine. You are but aliens and tenants with me." So, when you bought a field, you were actually just buying a set number of harvests. The price would even go down the closer you got to the Jubilee. It's a sliding scale lease.
So, if I bought your farm 5 years before the Jubilee, I'm paying a tiny bit because I only get 5 years of corn. But if it's 40 years away, the price is huge.
You got it. And when that shofar blows in the 50th year, the buyer packs up and the original family moves back in. It prevents the concentration of wealth. It means no family is ever permanently dispossessed of their future.
That is so radical. It's like a mortgage burning party where the bank doesn't forgive the debt. The debt is just finished because the contract is up.
And it wasn't just land, it was people. If someone got so deep in debt they had to sell themselves, basically becoming a hired worker to pay it off, they were released in the Jubilee. They got their freedom and their family land back at the same time. It's a total socioeconomic refresh.
I'm sitting here thinking about how much stress we carry about debt and the housing market. Imagine a society where the worst-case scenario only lasts until the next Jubilee, where your kids aren't born into your financial mistakes.
It's God's way of saying that people are more important than profits. Now, scholars argue whether Israel ever actually did this, and a lot of times they failed because the wealthy didn't want to give up the land. But the ideal is what matters. It points to Jesus.
Right, because Jesus literally starts his ministry by quoting Isaiah and saying he came to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. He's saying, I am the Jubilee. I am the reset.
He's the ultimate high priest who doesn't just arrange the bread or light the lamps. He is the bread and the light. He pays the debt we couldn't pay so we can return to the home we lost in Eden.
That is a lot to take in. It makes the rules of Leviticus feel so much more like a rescue mission.
It really does. So, for everyone listening in the Deeper Dive community, here is your text message summary for day 55. God doesn't just want your Sundays. He wants a universal reset of your whole life where every debt has an expiration date.
And your one specific action step for today? Take a mini Jubilee. Look at someone who owes you something. Maybe it's $5, maybe it's an apology you've been holding on to, and just burn the mortgage. Proclaim a little bit of liberty in your own circle today.
Do it. It feels better than you think.
We are so glad you're on this journey with us. Tomorrow, we're heading toward the finish line of Leviticus. And trust me, you don't want to miss the blessings and curses talk. It's high stakes.
Until then, keep the light burning and the fellowship fresh. We'll see you tomorrow.
Bye, guys.